All right, we're joined by UFC lightweight Chase Hooper, who picked up a big win on the weekend. Chase, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. As you can see, enjoying the little bit of sun we get out here in Washington. So, yeah, pretty good week so far.
Uh, Going into that fight, I know you were the underdog, but it kind of seemed like as the week went on, like I think more and more people were kind of starting to back you. Like when we talked before, you said like you really thought this was a good matchup for you. Like, was it because of that grappling that you thought you'd have a lot of success, or was there stuff in the striking that you thought you could have success as well?
I mean, honestly, I felt he was really fast when I got in there. I was not quite expecting just a little first combo he got off. I felt like was pretty fast, but no, I felt like I had a pretty good handle on his game as far as the striking goes. Like I did a lot of film and really like studied the bullet points of what I felt like he was going to do on the feet. So I felt confident with that, and like I mentioned before, like he'd had issues with the grappling, and I felt like the guys that were taking him down and doing damage to him were maybe not as good with the jiu-jitsu as me. But I did see Slava's counter wrestling improving a little bit. But like I just didn't know how good his counter wrestling was going to be going into the fight. But it obviously wasn't good enough. So
You did drop him with that overhand. Like, did that catch you by surprise that you were able to put? Because I think if you asked anyone before the fight, they said, "Oh, someone gets dropped in this fight." Like, I imagine 99% of the people would say you were the one probably getting dropped.
yeah, I mean it's one of those things, like a guy that's focused on knocking you out is a lot easier to hit versus a guy that's focused on defense. Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to get some respect on the feet. I felt like he was hesitating a lot on the striking. Um, but I think he was very weary of my shot. Like he was really like ready for me to start wrestling right off the bat. So kind of assuming that going in, we try to put the wrestling a little further down the line in the game plan. And yeah, I mean, I kind of set it up by level changing, faking that shot. And you know what they say, a broken clock is right twice a day. So that was one of my two times.
Uh, then after you drop him, like we talked before the fight about how durable he was and he's tough to get out of there. So like, but did that surprise you that he was able to survive that first round for how much damage you were landing on him?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like you said, we were expecting that going in. I knew it was tough, both physically and mentally. So I really was. I wouldn't say super surprised. I was more surprised that I would say Keith letting it go as long as he did. But watching it back, I felt like Slava was defending enough. He was doing just enough to keep it from getting stopped. Like right when Keith would be like, "Hey, you got to move, you got to work." He'd switch angles a little bit and try to get to a slightly better position. So I think he was still in the fight. Maybe just not as offensively as he could have been. But yeah, I mean, I was not super surprised by how durable he was. I would say, yeah, more surprised at dropping him. That's for sure.
How much in that first round was like, was there ever worry of like, obviously you want to get the finish, but then you kind of got to worry about not gassing yourself out? Like, was that ever a thought in your head during that round?
um, I mean, like again, right after dropping him, I try to keep that pace up a little bit with the strikes. But I saw, he was kind of having more success, and then it was, yeah, just kind of dialing it back a little bit. Um, I mean, that's kind of really what I was working all camp is trying to drown this dude with the pressure. So I felt like I had the cardio to match, but it was, yeah, just making sure I'm not overdoing it. Especially more when those strikes stopped landing on the face as much, like when they were landing on the guard, when they were landing on the arms, the elbows, whatever. Like I'd rather not, waste energy on that if they're not going to be effective shots. So it was definitely trying to, slow down and pick my shots a little more from there. But I felt pretty good cardio wise. I don't think I was even really sweating by the end of the fight.
And then in the second round, like similar story, you get him down with the wrestling, kind of landing a lot of ground pound. Probably could have been stopped at some points, but is that when you just kind of notice that he's not going away to strikes? You gotta sink in a choke, or did you just see the darts and decided to hop on it? Like when did you kind of decide to switch to the choke?
I think I just kind of ended up off position a little bit, and yeah, I saw that Keith wasn't really in the mood to stop it, so at least not for the strikes, and yeah, he was doing enough, so I was trying to wear on him a little bit, and then throw that choke in, and yeah, I mean,
And then kind of the important thing is about the controversy with the tap. I thought he tapped like live when it happened. Like I think if I was the ref, I would have stopped it just with the way it was. Like, what were your kind of thoughts being in there and then kind of watching it afterwards?
yeah, so I did feel like in the video you can see there was like one clear tap, and I don't really know what that was about. Like, I felt like his grappling was honestly more primitive than I was really even expecting. Like, I was expecting more. I thought I was going to be up against more on the ground, like him just scrambling up a lot better. But he was not having any success. So, with some of those guys, when you do lock up chokes and you do start to squeeze, because I felt like I had the right position, but I hadn't really started to get to the point where I would feel that I would tap personally. But, a guy that's not as well versed in grappling, that's, just been beat up for the past, 7, 8 minutes, they might tap a little quicker. But I really wasn't sure what was happening. I had no intention of letting go until the ref told me to stop. And, so that was on Keith. That's really that's our responsibility at the end of the day, is to keep going until the referee tells you to stop, and it's the referee's responsibility to determine when the fight's over. Whatever that tap was, he definitely tapped me, but it wasn't. I can't say one way or the other what it was. Whether it was the famed Brazilian tap or not. Trying to maybe get me to let go. I definitely wasn't going to do that. I felt like I had it pretty locked in, and I was, it was just going to get deeper from there. Um, Pretty much the consensus I've been seeing is like, regardless of whether it was a tap or it wasn't, like, it's not like it was a close fight. Um,
Mhm.
he maybe potentially had the beginning of the third round to get back in the fight, but we were on our way to 2 10-8 rounds back to back. It wasn't. It was keeping him from taking more unnecessary damage. It is what it is, and yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, all publicity is good publicity.
Mhm.
Like, if people are like, "Oh, he tapped, he didn't tap, whatever," they're still talking about the fight. Um, but I would have liked a cleaner finish for sure. Let him sit in there that extra 10 15 seconds, just to make it a little more decisive.
I also think like there was a scenario where that doesn't even get to the third round where the ref or the doctors come in and stop it after seconds. He had that giant hematoma going. Like you had a lot of damage where I wouldn't have been surprised if the dog said like, all right, you've had enough here.
I honestly didn't see that until after the fight. Like, I didn't even notice it. But yeah, that was a crazy one to see for sure. Yeah, definitely one for the resume.
Fair to say, like to me, I think it's obvious, but like this was your best performance you've ever had in the UFC, maybe your whole career, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I felt great the whole day. I felt like everything went perfect, honestly. Did a little morning shakeout Saturday. I think that's exactly what I needed. Like, I got those little maybe morning bits of jitters out. Just sharpened everything up, and then when I got to the arena doing the warm up, I felt sharp. Got into the cage, I felt nothing really. I felt very cool, very calm, very collected. I was excited to be out there in front of the crowd. I just kept reminding myself the whole night, during the warm up, like, hey, you wanted to be here, like, and that I think I'm really settling in, and I think it's showing in the performances. Obviously, like, I felt very calm going into the fight, not no fear, no anxiety, just ready to go out there and perform. And I think that's letting me get to this next level here for sure.
Obviously, the career started just kind of like a lot of alternating wins and losses at featherweight. Do you wish you would have just been a lightweight from the get go, or do you think like that experience and like being a 45 was good for you?
No, honestly, I think I was too small probably for lightweight to begin with. Although I'd done all of my previous fights before contender at 55. Um, yeah, I mean, I was walking at like 165 probably. And I would probably diet down to 160 and end up cutting water like, you know, from, 155 or whatever. So I was definitely an okay size for 45 to start out, the first 2, 3, 4 fights, but then the last couple were definitely rough on my body. Um, but, it definitely built up my mental fortitude, I would say, and it gave me the time to grow into my body and really develop the skill sets. Um, because at the end of the day, it wasn't just my body type that lost me those fights at the beginning. It was, confidence issues. It was maybe, skill set issues, like some gaps that I needed to fill in. And it's been a long road to get here, but I do feel like I'm settling in, and I'm ready to start making my way up the top. I mean, 3-fight win streak, and excited to see where it goes from here.
Where do you think this puts you in the lightweight division? Like lightweight division is obviously super stacked, but like I think doing that, like no one's really done that to Borshchev in his career. So like where do you think that kind of puts you?
Yeah, I mean that was his first time getting finished ever. World champion kickboxer. I'm not the first guy to drop him, but you know, he's the first guy that I've dropped, so I'll take that. But yeah, there's what 90 guys in lightweight right now, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest divisions in the sport, one of the toughest divisions in the sport. I think it starts to move me up towards, the top end of the unranked side of things. I think there's tiers. I think I'm moving up to the next tier, being on that 3-fight win streak. Um, maybe opening up some of the more older vet guys, some of the other young bucks that are on there, 2-fight, 3-fight win streaks. Um, I think I'm, potentially 2 wins away from being in the rankings. So, I'm taking it fight by fight. But yeah, I think we're moving our way up here. I still have plenty of time, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see who they offer next. And we should be hitting that renegotiation slot here pretty quick. That's 3 fights on this last contract out of my 4-fight deal. So 3 wins. We should be getting a nice little pay bump here too.
So I guess you technically just have one fight left on this current deal, but I imagine when you get a fight offer, there'll be like a new contract along with that.
Yeah, I've never been to the point. I think it's generally a bad sign if UFC is letting you fight out your deal. We've always been to the point where there's one fight left, and they're like, "Hey, renegotiation time." Um, yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think it's about time, and I think I'm proving my value, so I think they'll be willing to keep the investment going for sure.
Just final thing, like what is the goal then? I know you have the kid on the way. Like what's kind of the rest of the year look like for you then?
I would say, really, it depends on the matchup, but I would probably want to fight September at the earliest. Um, I mean, I'm healthy. The worst thing I have is my shin's a little puffy right now. He threw one hard calf kick, and I checked it, but that's still, shin to shin with bad intention on his end. So my shin's a little lumped up right now, but other than that, we're good to go. I would say I wouldn't necessarily want to wait until the very end of the year. I'd like to stay busy. I'd like to stay active. Just I'm pretty sure Sean Shelby said on the way out, he's like, "Hey, whenever you guys want to fight, like just call us, let us know, we'll get you on." Um, they definitely like the performance, so yeah, hopefully they'll keep me busy and keep me working. So I'm looking forward to that.
Actually, just one more quick thing. Do you think the way the fight finished and like you not getting the ground pound or like the stay Keith stopped earlier, like do you think that might have played a role in you not getting one of those bonuses?
Uh, Potentially, but it's the way the bonuses work is generally the higher guys on the card, like the Derek Lewis's.
Hmm.
Who else was it? Did Joaquin get the finish? No, he got a
No,
decision.
Alberg didn't he get one for
Goldberg.
12-second knock it or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it
yeah,
was?
yeah. And that makes sense. People love knockouts. Derek Lewis, people love Derek Lewis. Main event and the co-main event, I think it was a featured bout for Olberg. It's generally the higher people on the card. The huh? The fella before me that knocked out Terrence. I mean, he didn't get a bonus either, and I
Mhm.
thought that was super clean. I think that's just kind of the way it goes. I was hoping maybe they would do something like they do sometimes where, especially the live events and us having what I think the highest gate for a fight
Mhm.
night. Sometimes they'll be like, all right, all the finishes, you guys get bonuses. Because I think there was only 4 of them, at least off the top of my head. That head kick, mine, and then Olberg and Lewis.
And
Um,
Diego Ferreira got one late, so
oh,
5.
yeah. But yeah, he's an OG, though, too. So, no, yeah, I mean, I think they give it to the more veteran guys. So, I'm happy to get my show money and my win money. And then anything on top of that's always a bonus. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
literal sense. But yeah, I don't know. It's okay.
Well, Chase, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Yeah, thank you. Great talking to you.